Ladies and gents, this is the moment you've waited for.
Hello, and welcome to the TrailManners Podcast. I'm your host, Aric Manning, coming to you from the beautiful trails in Ogden, Utah, but connecting you to wherever trail, ultra, and mountain running takes us. We'll bring trail running to life with amazing athletes, discuss the latest topics, epic journeys, and get you stoked for your next trail adventure. We're sharing the moments that make life special, because even a rough day on the trail beats a good day indoors, and nothing beats time spent with good friends and great stories. Catch us here weekly for your dose of dirt, vert, and good vibes. So now it's time to top off your water, grab some cheese curds, and join us for this week's podcast, where we take you deep into the heart of our sport. It's go time. Hello and welcome to episode number 140 of the TrailManners Podcast. Our guest today is Aric Manning. The TrailManners Podcast is produced every week for enjoyment, and show notes are found at trailmanners.com. Come back often, and please feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at TrailManners. If you're so inclined, TrailManners would really appreciate any contributions via our Patreon account at patreon.com/TrailManners. All links are in the show notes. Now let's get after it. Hello and welcome back to the TrailManners Podcast. I am your host, Aric Manning, and it is an absolute pleasure to be back behind the microphone and podcasting once again. The show will be a little bit different. It is launching on Sunday, November 24th, and the reason for that, for those listeners that have been around for the past 4 years, at first, welcome any new listener, of course. We are happy to have you, and we hope you stick around. But 4 years ago, myself and a very good friend of mine, Mr. Joel Hatch, embarked on this journey together. And so I thought it would be fitting to launch year number 5 on the anniversary date of the launch. So we will have a podcast that launches, the one you're listening to, on Sunday. And then just a couple days later, we're going to get back to our schedule, back to our normalcy of a Tuesday show, which entails guests. And then we have our Thursday show, which is single track session. So I'll get into that a little bit with this podcast again. A little bit of history. Myself and Joel started this over 4 years ago. It took us a long process before we launched our very first episode, and I encourage you to go and listen. I think it was episode 0 was the very first one that we launched, and it's quite different than maybe all the others just because we had no clue what we were doing. At the time, 4 years ago, there was not a whole lot of trail running podcasts out there. Podcast was obviously starting to take off in many ways, but I think Joel and I found that there might be a little hole that we could fill for the simple fact that we don't take ourselves too seriously. And trail running, the growth of the sport was definitely growing, increasing. And we wanted to do something that was positive and fun, encouraging, where people could just kind of unplug from normalcy and listen to two yahoos just banter back and forth and see what we could dig up. So that was kind of the original vision or the original journey of the podcast. We probably came at it, we didn't come at it as a business angle, which when we look back on it, it's something we potentially could have done and maybe done more with the show, I guess. But through the whole process, one of the things we tried to keep, we wanted to keep it authentic, real, and I know we use those a lot, but that's true to who I feel we are. Like I said, we're not elite type ultra runners or trail runners. We don't take ourselves seriously. We do it because we love it. There is an absolute passion there. And I think once we started to realize what kind of impact the podcast had. And I don't necessarily mean the impact on the listener, but I think the impact on the hosts, because Joel and myself grew so much through this experience together, both as individuals and both as friends. And it's just something that no matter how old I get to be, which I hope it's not too old, I will always look back on these last 4 years with Joel as some turning points in my life in so many ways. Trail running has brought me so much, and I am more than thankful, and it was just maybe a way that Joel and I could give back. And so we started it with some of the trail etiquette. We wanted to let people have some more awareness about the trails, about the history of trail running a little bit, not too in detail or 100 years ago and all that, but we wanted people to have a deeper connection, and a deeper connection to what we loved. And Joel and I had a very deep connection with the sport. We were both mountain people. We both love being on the trails. We both love the challenge. We both love the simplicity, but also the rawness, I guess, at times of trail running, where you can just get into experiences that change you. And I think we've all had those experiences, whether it's through trail running or something else. And so we said, what the hell? Let's go for it. Let's see if we could do something with this. And I know I can speak for Joel on this. We had no idea it would turn into what it was. Not that we were the number one podcast in the land or the most popular trail running podcast. We never approached it that way. We just thought if we could entertain people, or maybe, I guess, deep down they make a difference in some way through the sport, then that was enough for us. And it really was. It was something that we've met so many amazing people through the podcast. Some we've met, been fortunate to meet, and some we've never met face to face, but I feel we have these really deep connections of what we love and what we have passions for. So the history, there's a little bit of it. We don't take ourselves seriously, and I can't thank Joel enough, and we are still as close as can be. We still get together. We still run together. We still laugh together, and he will be back doing some guest hosting. So I've already told him that, and he's agreed. But it's just his life has taken him in a different direction with some work and other responsibilities, and so many of you know that he stepped away, I think, in February of 2019. And then I took a step away as well. And so I've been asked, and I've been thinking to myself, why continue and why do I want to do it again? And I think some of it, personally, it wasn't what it should be. I didn't feel like it was okay to be happy, and I do now. I feel it's completely okay to be happy, and maybe I'm trying to make things into a Hallmark movie because that's so popular this time of year, but my heart is so full right now, and the podcast has been such a huge part of my life that I thought, let's keep continuing this, let's recharge, let's regroup, let's retweak a few things, and forge forward. I'm healthy, I'm happy, my passion is there, and there's so many amazing people that have encouraged me, I guess, and the podcast along the way. The notes, the texts, the emails, the smoke signals, the faxes, whatever they are, of people just encouraging, hey, we miss it, it was awesome. And again, if it's one or two people that are listening, I'm more than happy with that, because hopefully you're enjoying yourself, and hopefully it is something you can unplug from, whether you agree with what we say, whether you don't. Hopefully it's enough that it can pull you away from, or fill an hour, or whatever it might be, even if you're like, what a dink, whatever it might be. So, but I've gained so much through this, like I said, friends and people, and I just want to thank everyone for their support, the excitement. I really, truly, truly, truly hope you all know how much I personally appreciate it. I can feel that, and seeing it, and it makes me happy. And so just a heartfelt thank you to everybody out there that's encouraged me and Joel and this whole thing along the way. And I really hope I don't disappoint anybody moving forward, because it is going to change a little bit, and I'll get into that a little bit more. We're going to have obviously some guest hosts, but we'll get to that later. But I just want to thank everybody. We've had people with us from the beginning. I know we've picked up people along the way, and hopefully we've picked up some new listeners as we launch year 5, which is still super, super crazy to me that it's lasted this long. I think we've recorded over 285 episodes over the past 4 years, which may not seem like a lot, but it's very intensive, mixing and scheduling and all those things. So there's definitely a lot more that goes behind it, but I'm excited for 300. And whenever that happens in 2020, I want it to be big. And I don't know how to do that yet, so I'll take suggestions, but I want it to be big. That just seems fun. It's not like 300 some magical number like number 8 because that's my favorite, or 500 or 1,000. But 300 is a nice round number, I guess. And I think there's a movie out there called 300, so it can't be too bad, which I never saw. So yeah, thank you. I hope you enjoy it. This podcast, again, is just to launch, to give you a little history, and also introduce our guest. We do have a guest today. Today's guest is myself. I am going to interview myself. No, it's I just want to tell people a little bit about myself. Those that may not know me, or like I said, new listeners, which I hopefully pick up, or existing listeners. I'm just going to fill a few holes of like who I am, a little bit about myself, which I'm not good at talking about myself, but sometimes you got to break those comfort. You got to step out of your comfort zone, which I've completely done. So a little bit about me. Aric Manning. My friends call me Manners. Obviously, TrailManners is another one that I go by for the show. I am a father of 2. I have 2 beautiful, incredible, amazing, keep throwing every word you can think of in their daughters. Samantha, who is 22, soon to be 23 in February. My youngest, Aspen, she is 14, and they absolutely are joys in my life. And I'm excited. In a couple weeks, I'm taking them both, us 3, to Disneyland for Christmas. That was what they wanted to do, and that's what we're going to do. So, beautiful daughters. I also have a wonderful companion in my life. You may know him as the 4-legged apostle of Vert, Gunner, my golden doodle, my trusty sidekick, the trail captain, the gunboat captain. So he'll be on the show from time to time, but he's a dog of little words, and he really struggles with not chewing on the microphone as opposed to, making noises into it. But he's with me. I changed jobs just recently. I'm very happy, blessed, thankful, excited. I will soon be the new executive director for Weber Pathways here in Ogden, Utah. I am currently the assistant executive director. Mark is the executive director. He will be retiring, so they are grooming me to take that role, which are massive, massive shoes to fill. Mark has done such an amazing job at that role, and the organization is one of the greatest organizations I've ever been a part of with the people and our board. And I'm real excited to take this journey because it is something that is something for the community. It's building, maintaining trails. We're working on a project on a river to save fish. Are partnering with like REI, all these amazing groups, the Goal Foundation, Visit Ogden. So it's a really fantastic opportunity for me. And things just keep rolling in with that. We're looking to do a name change here shortly from Weber Pathways to kind of expand who we are and what we do and do more things. But I feel absolutely beyond blessed to be stepping into this role, and I just hope that I can fulfill my responsibilities and hopefully make a difference. Maybe it's a Hallmark movie, I don't know, but I really am excited about it. I'm also a soccer coach. I coach a under 14 boys soccer team. Great group of kids. Soccer is one of my passions. It's something I did throughout my entire life before I found running, and coaching these kids is also something that I really feel fortunate about. I had a really good friend of mine that somewhat brought me out of coaching retirement. I hadn't coached for quite a few years after coaching at high school, college, Olympic development levels, and I am so happy to be back, and I am so lucky to have the group of kids I work with, as well as my assistant coach and his wife, who's our team manager, and just all the people I've met through that experience, the parents, and just reconnecting with a lot of people that I knew in the soccer world for so many years, because that's pretty much who I was from age 12 to adulthood, even though adulthood, I guess, is a interesting word for me since I don't feel like an adult half the time. But yeah. And I guess I'm also a trail runner. I've dabbled in trail running, I guess, for 15 years. I still love it. I've never been a fast runner, but I tell you what, I don't know of something I've just connected to more in my life. I've been fortunate to be a race director. I've been fortunate to be a volunteer. Helped start the Pearl Izumi ultra running team from the beginning. Managed that team for about 7 years. Met some amazing people through that. And that's, I think, where a little bit behind the scenes started to happen for me on trail running. I was so lucky to have friends like Scott Hyme and some people in the sport that took me under their wing and just made me feel welcome. Sitting around the table listening to a Joe Kulak or some of these older, just epic people, Brian Fishers and Garrett Grobbins, and I remember sitting in Leadville around the table, and I probably didn't say a word for 2 hours because I was soaking in all of this. And that comes around to talking with Rock Horton, and I absolutely, positively encourage everybody to go listen to that podcast. I don't remember what number it is. We'll say in the 50s, but Rock Horton has really changed the way I've wanted to do the podcast based on keeping stories alive. There's so much that's happened in trail running that part of this podcast, I want to keep those stories moving. So many stories that unfortunately don't get passed down sometimes. So, and let's be honest, sometimes that's a good thing. So trail runner, had a running group here in the Ogden area. Happy Utah Mountaineers was a part of that for a while. But that's just a little sky view about myself. Like I said, I don't like to talk about myself too much, so we won't get too far down the road there. But I also am really looking forward to 2020. 2019 has been a year that, some people say, oh, let's just throw 2019 behind us, let's move on. But I want to take 2019 in for all the lessons that it taught me and all the things that it helped me with. It was a tough year for old Manners here, but it's behind us. And I'm looking forward to 2020. And like I said, right now, I feel this energy that I haven't felt in quite some time. And we might get into that in another podcast. But as of right now, that's where you're at. And I'm just really excited for 2020. So I'm throwing all my eggs into the basket. I want to go big. I'm feeling great. I'm running. I'm dropping the LBs. And my heart's full, folks. And that is such a chain reaction of where I was a year ago at this point. So I'm going to throw down my race list, and these are races I'm registered for, so I'm ready. And for me, it's a stout schedule, but I'm so excited I can't contain myself. So my first, and this is hopefully get that out there and hope to meet some of you at those races. So Arches Ultra in January, I've registered for that one down in Moab. It's a 50K. On the fence with Moab Red Hot still. That's February 15th. I'm still on the fence here. I will be volunteering at different events, hopefully Rufa here in Ogden, at Malin's will be one I will be volunteering at. The winter racing circuit here in Utah, I'll probably be volunteering at some board situations. I will be at the Buffalo Run next year. I'm hopefully emceeing the finish since I've been doing that lately. I got an adventure run planned for Great Basin National Park in April, then Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim at the end of April, 1st of May, which I'm excited to get back to. And one race I'm really pigeonhole on my calendar, like got a pin in it there, is Memorial Day, May 25th, the Stumptown Trail Run. That's a 50K up in Portland, my old stomping grounds of college, and I'm really looking forward to getting up there and running around. That's a race I've been eyeballing for a while. I'm going to make a return to do my 4th, I think, maybe 5th Squaw Peak 50 in June. Very beautiful, tough race that I'm excited to go back to. After that, I'm going to do the Beaverhead 100K, and that's my birthday weekend, July 11th, up in Salmon, Idaho, which is still open if you're looking for an awesome, beautiful, inspiring, but butt-kicking 100K. I think the 55K is full. And then after that, it gets serious. So I've got the Ute 100 on August 8th. 8's my favorite number, 8-8, right? So we're getting there. And then a little over a month later, finishing off with the Bear 100. So I strategically put my schedule together so I can get through the winter with Arches, and then we'll see. There's a couple months there where there's some question marks of what I'll be doing, but I'll keep flowing. And then it's just go time. Grand Canyon obviously is a fun run with some great people. And then Stumptown's kind of the kickoff. Squaw Peak's a 50, which will kind of increase the next race for 100K, and then turn right around and have the Ute 100, which the idea, the goal, the pie in the sky is to have the Bear 100 as my focus race, with everything setting me up for a successful day. And a successful day, to me, it might be different than everybody else, so I'll kind of curb that a little bit. And as we get further down the road, maybe I'll start throwing out some goals I have for myself, and that's for accountability purposes, because I think that helps. I would like to finish up the year maybe in Oregon or Bellingham as just a fun run, just to celebrate my year, so stay tuned for that. And that's pretty much it. So I hope to see people at some of these races, and I'd love to hear where you're going to be. So especially if it's close by. I mean, I would love to meet people and see people. I love getting out. I love volunteering. I'll be volunteering most likely at the Ogden Marathon, the winter racing circuit, the Buffalo Run races, Harriman race that Jim Skaggs does. and a few others. So I would love to hear your schedule, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you've done any of those races, I've done a few, but it's always good to compare notes. But let me know if I'm going to see any of you there, because I think that would be a lot of fun. Make sure you connect with me. I would love to say hello or meet you for the first time or whatever it might be. That's partly where I get a lot of joy from this podcast, because let's face it, at the end of the day, it's about the relationships we make and the people we know that make life what it is. It's not a lot of those other things. So that's my race calendar. Let me give you a little bit of what's coming in 2020 for the TrailManners podcast. Again, this is kind of the 10,000-foot view. There's still some balls in the air that we're talking about. But I want everybody to know that we started something different a few weeks ago, and thanks for a guest, not a guest, but a TrailManners listener / social media follower. We put together a TrailManners Facebook community page, and partly because if you've listened to the podcast in the past, there's been times I've been really turned off by social media. I think it is what it is, right? So I wanted to do this Facebook community page where we can moderate it, and we're not going to grow it huge. You know, if you want in, you go to TrailManners Facebook page. I think there's a situation, or you can, TrailManners community page might be something you can look up. But it's a safe place, folks. This is a safe zone. So you can come here if you have questions, if you need advice, if you just want to pick somebody's brain. This is where you need to be. And I'm going to tell you why, because I'm going to make sure we don't have any a-holes or trolls in there, because that's the first thing out. I don't care. If you don't like me for booting you, I don't care. I see too many times people ask serious questions and people just give them snarky answers. I don't care if the same question was asked 2 weeks before. It gets buried and someone's just asking a legitimate question, and if you run on the trails and if you share the trails, I'm sorry, but it's your responsibility to a point to help educate people, and it's to help to bring awareness to people, because you complain. People complain about, I was on the trail and this, that, and the other. There's only one way people are going to know, right? And that's by sharing it and being an ambassador and being somebody that people can turn to. So we've got that community page. I'm really excited about it. Obviously, there's not a lot of people on there because we haven't really promoted it, and simply because I want it for the TrailManners community. It's not necessarily I'm that interested in making this a big, tons of followers, tons of likes. I want it for the people that have been around the TrailManners podcast in the community, because let's face it, it's some solid people, and you guys are amazing, and I've never seen anybody be negative or bash anybody. And that's what I want. I want just positivity, a safe place. There's too much junk in the world. So come on over and ask away, and I would be more than happy to help. And we've already had people ask questions and have some just solid answers from just amazing folks. So that's going on. We're going to come back with some contests. We've got some gear to give away, whether it's TrailManners or some other companies and organizations I work with. We're going to have some new swag. We're going to tweak the logo just a bit, and you're going to see that coming up here in the next week with the big launch. One will come out right away. The other one we're still finalizing. We're going to have some special awards. So at the end of the year, TrailManners is going to have their own awards categories, and we're going to have Ultra Runner of the Year 11 through 20, because let's face it, 1 through 10, you're awesome. But what about the 11 through 20? Come on now. Let's give them a little love. So we're going to have that. We're going to have a couple special awards that I'm going to come up with, and I'll tell you guys more later. Tell you more about that later, if that made sense. Oh, what do we got? Some new lids. We got some new hats. The Woody Footy is coming back. We got some hats being made. New logo that I am super psyched about. Looks really cool. I'm going to make a couple different colors of hats so people can have an option. Until they're gone, then you're stuck with whatever's left. But we've got about 60 of those coming. We give those once a week. If you're not sure what that is, on TrailManners Facebook page every Sunday, I post Woody Footy, where did your feet take you? I pick a winner of the most beautiful picture that talks to me. That will be the photo we use when we launch our single track session, and I'm going to send you a free hat. And you can rock the hat, and they're pretty cool. So we got those coming. The idea also is we're going to, on the website at TrailManners.com, we're going to have some written articles from people and myself. I'm looking to do a column maybe once or twice a month, or maybe more. It depends. And also some people that to write some columns as well, whether it's an adventure run or race report, things like that, because I think people love it. And I am so thrilled with the community that TrailManners has established over the last 4 years that this is the right place. This is the right place for that type of thing. We've got a brand new single track session format, and I'm going to stick to a certain format just to keep it clean and fun. Some ideas what you're going to have. We're going to talk about our previous episode just launched. We're going to talk to you about the next episode we have coming out. We are always going to have a beer of the week, which hopefully is a new beer every week that I'll review, but not like your normal reviews. It'll be an Aric Manning review. And I'm an IPA guy, so 90+% of the reviews are going to be IPA. And why? Because it's my podcast and it's my favorite, and that's it. So, sorry. But I'll mix in a few more. We're going to talk about race results from the past week. We're going to talk the next week in running. We're going to have a hot topic of the week. If there's some hot topics going on, whether there's some controversy, whether there's some awesomeness, and which we really want to focus more on is a little bit of that positivity, more excitement, more things to get you happy and jazzed and fill your heart with joy. So that's where that's at. We're also going to bring back our Strava contest. So TrailManners has a Strava page, and each week all we're going to do is read the people who have got the 3 most miles, most vert, and another one that's going to be we talk about that I can't remember. But there's 3 categories, and we'll just talk. It's not a contest. You don't win anything. We just talk about it. There's quite a few people on the Strava page. That's where we go through our Woody Footies. We're going to try and go through the list of people that post, and I really want to increase that. So part of what I want to do for 2020, we don't do a lot of marketing. We don't have money, so I think that makes a difference. So I'm going to rely on you, the listener, to help promote the show. So if you like it, if you don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. I'm still going to be here for you, and I still love you. But if you want to share it and bring on some new listeners and help spread the word, I encourage you to do that. And I encourage you also to let people know about the Woody Footies, because that's a special thing that I've absolutely enjoyed, is to see the places that you run, the places that you visit, because I want to go to a lot of those places, but maybe I can't or I won't or whatever, and I love to see what you experience. So pay attention to that. It's going to be a fun year for that. I already know, because it always is. We're also going to have our other segment we do on Single Track Session. It's called Ask TrailManners, where you can email me, manners@trailmanners.com. Any questions you want to know, I'll find the answer. I'll reach out to somebody who can find it. And these have varied from running-related, training-related, injury-related, nutrition-related, gear-related, you name it. So it's an Ask TrailManners segment. We answer all questions on the podcast, and then people are able to chime in on the launch on the social media side if there's advice they have as well. We also have a Patreon page. That's something that is going to be a focal point a little bit, because it does cost to do the podcast, and any little bit helps. And I know we've had some supporters in the past and some that are still supporting the show, and I appreciate that. Every dollar does help. I mean, you can do it for like $2 a month, a cup of coffee a month, if you will, but that adds up, and it really does help with some of the costs associated with the podcast, because I try to stay away from other things. We've had sponsors in the past, which I'm not against, but unfortunately, the sponsors have to be something I support. I'm not going to talk about a product or support a product that I don't believe in. So it's not a matter of doing a sponsorship with financial. It's got to be something I believe in. I've never had a problem turning people down because it's not a product I'm going to use, because, again, it comes back to who I want to be and who I am, and I want to be completely transparent with everybody out there. So you won't see me really as an ambassador. You won't see me for any of those things, because that's kind of stained in my eyes. If you're going to represent something or support something, you need to believe in it, and you need to live it. You can't fake it because you want free gear or to make yourself look better. So that's another story. But anyway, check us out on Patreon, and the links will be in the show notes on that. Like I said, every dollar helps, folks, and there's different levels you can come in at. We have we have a few people in at like $2, $5, and you know what? I appreciate no matter what the level is, because it's support, and we'll leave that. We're also going to encourage everybody to give us a review, whether it's on iTunes, social media, whatever it is. And then every week we'll have a special sign-off for the single track session. So that's going to be kind of our consistent format, and we'll just fill the gaps every week. That way we're not going too far astray. We're not going too out of control. It's going to be very focused, maybe 30 minutes depending on the week. Some weeks are going to be bigger than others. And we're also going to bring on some guest hosts. I think that's important. It's hard sometimes to find somebody that you can bounce things back and forth. It took years for me and Joel to get the rapport we ended up with, and I understand that's probably a better format for most people, myself included. It's not like I enjoy talking into a microphone by myself, even though my dog's right here at my feet. But we're going to bring people in, and that's going to go from guest hosts to a lot of different things. So you'll have me a lot of times solo. When I can bring a guest host and schedules work out, you're definitely going to hear that. And you know what? I'm always going to encourage anybody to reach out to me at manners@trailmanners.com if you have ideas. If you have ideas for guests, if you have ideas for topics, if you're interested in being on the show, I'm wide open. This is how I want to do things. So please don't feel like you cannot contact me, because I would be more than happy to take advice, take help, or whatever. But if we don't use it, you can't be upset either. So I mentioned the Trail Manners Awards. We're also going to do a few group runs throughout the year. Group runs are going to include a couple things. Twice a year, twice in 2020 at least, I would like to do a trail cleanup. And the idea behind that is do I don't say virtual because you're doing it, but if we have one here in Ogden, I might set a date and say, why don't you do one up in your neck of the woods and take some photos, and let's see how much trash we can all collect together. It's something that I enjoy doing. I do it all the time where I live. There's a river right by me. But what it does, there's a couple things. One, it promotes it and people see you doing it and they're going to do it, because it's sometimes out of sight, out of mind. You see the garbage, but you think someone's going to pick it up. When you see people physically picking it up, it gives you a little bit more oomph to do it yourself. So that's one. Two, studies have shown, and I've been looking into this as well and talked to somebody, that if an area is continually littered, it's a norm, right? Like, people don't recognize it anymore. But if you can keep an area clean for a little while and then a piece of trash shows up, people will go out of their way to collect that. So that's just one of the things I want to do. Like I said, some group runs. Again, the show comes from Ogden, Utah, so that's mainly where they're at. But I'm not against, when I go places and I do travel, to find a group or find some people to take me on a tour. My schedule's a little flexible sometimes with that. We're going to try and do some meetups. So like I mentioned, if I'm at a race, I'll talk about it. And if you're going to be there, let me know. I'd love to meet you. And sometimes I'll hook up and maybe we'll do a podcast and talk if you have a great story or a good run or something. So we're going to do some of those. The other thing I'm going to introduce this year, which is a little bit different, is a scheduled time off for myself. By doing this with, like I mentioned before, my job, my family, my hobbies, some downtime, we're going to take some time off throughout the year. So this year, 2019, I'm going to take the last 2 weeks of February off, December, Christmas and New Year's. I want to just focus on what is important to me, which are my daughters and my dog, and not have to worry about launching a show. But we're going to have a few shows before that, so it's not like, oh, he's coming back, then he's leaving. That's going to happen however long this podcast is in existence. So we'll always take Christmas week off. There'll be a few other dates throughout the year, but those will come in advance, just little breaks. Also, put on your calendars, a day off for me will be National Cheese Curd Day, which is October 15th. So don't expect anything from me. I will be celebrating National Cheese Curd Day, October 15th. And I'm also going to be celebrating National IPA Day, which is August 6th, both in 2020. So don't expect anything from me on August 6th or October 15th, National IPA Day, and National Cheese Curd Day. Those are my soft spots. That is the quickest way to my heart. Cheese curds and a good IPA. We're also going to have some videos. I'm going to be shooting some videos this year, which I think will be kind of fun. And if not for you guys, for me, maybe some lead up to races, maybe race morning, maybe post race, just thoughts, just ideas, and see how the mind changes and how we're training and how we're packing, because I get questions all the time. How do you pack for a race? What do you do with your drop bag? So I'll probably do some videos of me doing myself, right? Not that you want to see my face because I got that for the microphone, but we're going to be doing some of that type of stuff. Also some running things. I mentioned trail cleanup days, which I'm so looking forward to because I know a lot of people want to do stuff. Sometimes they don't know how or just need that little nudge, and I'd need that as well. I mentioned the Facebook Trail Manners community page. And then we're going to just announce special things as they come. So all throughout the year, there's always going to be ideas. We got, National Trails Week. We got Earth Day. We got all these things that kind of coincide with trail running and what we do. So we're going to talk about those, and we're going to have maybe little teeny events around them or something, right? So the TrailManners website, keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on our social media. We'd love to have you follow us. We'd love for you to be engaged. I think that's the biggest thing, is just being engaged. And please, 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 and I'll say it a million times, feel free to reach out to me at any time if you have a question. I'm always here, man. And I think that's something I just want to connect more with the listener. Some podcast ideas. So this is something that comes up quite a bit. So 2020, I've got a whole spreadsheet of podcast ideas. So I'm looking, so if you're listening, here you go. Yeah, but I like listeners. It's not just the social media. We have some social media people that don't listen, which is fine. But I'm here for the listeners, right? That's where we make this connection. So I'm looking for somebody who is going to be running their first 100-miler in 2020. So in the past, I've had the pleasure to follow people along before big events. I've had Harrison Fluman before Bigfoot 200. I've had Jeff Hart, who, folks, he's amazing. I followed him up to Hard Rock, through training through Hard Rock, so a bunch of episodes. I'd like to find one or two people even that are looking to run their first 100-miler in 2020 and just kind of go along the ride with you and talk to you and let our listeners hear, because so many people out there want to do these things, whether it's 100, whether it's a 50, whether it's, whatever it is, but they don't. Maybe they're nervous. They don't know how to start. They don't dare to ask the question. So we want to provide some answers so they don't have to ask, and then maybe that'll spur them to know it's okay to ask those questions. I know when I ran my first 100 and when I started 15 years ago, we didn't have the information we have today, and it was difficult. Now we've got the correct information that we can help people not make the same mistakes we did or we do. So again, if you're looking to run your first 100 in 2020, please hit me up. Also, if you're going to run your first ultra trail race, I don't care what the distance is, anything over a marathon, right? That's how it's consumed. Hit me up. I like the human interest stories, the people that are breaking out of their comfort zone, the people that are making changes. And those are just a few of the topics. We're going to have a lot of new topics. We're going to have some serious topics. We're going to have stuff on alcohol, addictions, depressions. We're going to talk about those. I think that's important as well. I know a lot of people out there, unfortunately, suffer from some of these and have the, have to deal with these on a daily basis. And there's some people that are comfortable that are going to come on the show and talk about it. And I know sometimes those aren't the funny shows we've come to enjoy here at TrailManners, but I think they're important pieces to society and a very important piece to our community and just people. So we're going to have that on there, but we also have a slew of other things. Some of the shows I have coming up, we've got someone that's going to talk to us about just getting back from the Grand Canyon, rim to rim to rim. We're going to be talking soon with somebody that has done their first ultra race, trail race. We're going to be talking to somebody that's out doing the Annapurna circuit right now over in Nepal. So we're going to do a lot, not just races, not just adventure runs. We're going to talk about everything. Bigfoot sightings. If you got one of those, I'm game, folks, as long as it happened on a trail. But I don't want people to think this is like, we're not going to chase what we consider like the elite athletes. We will continue to have them on the show. I'm fortunate enough to be friends with some. We've had them on before, but they kind of make the rounds a little bit. And if they are on our show, we're not going to ask the same questions they get asked on other podcasts. We're going to get a little deeper into, boxer's briefs type of questions. We're not going to say, what do you eat, right? I don't care what you eat. I want to know if you're wearing trousers, bro. So we're going to be talking about that kind of stuff and those type of people. But I like the human interest stories, the people that are out there doing what they love. We've had people with weight loss. We've had so many amazing guests. And the great thing about podcasting, there's so many more out there. So it's never going to get old. We're always going to have, and I'm always listening to the listener. So I'm always listening to what you want to hear. I want to provide the listener with what they want, as long as it fits within what we're doing here, which, let's face it, it mainly does. But if it doesn't, I'm always open, seriously, to things, concerns, topics. Let's talk about them, but also in a very constructive way, in a very positive way. I don't want this podcast, this community to ever have that. I don't want to go down any negative avenues. It's not worth it. It's not something I'm interested in. We will never talk politics. We will never talk that type of thing. So it's a place to come and enjoy yourself. So that's a little bit about what we have coming up in 2020. I also just recently reached out, posted something and said, hey, if you want to know more about TrailManners, I'm doing this podcast. We're going to start it with, send a question in, whether it was through Facebook, email, whatever, and I'll answer those questions. And surprisingly, I got asked a few questions. Now, some of them are interesting, some of them are silly, and some of them are very serious, folks, very serious. Like the very first one that came through from Chris Pack in Colorado, who's been a friend of the show, and I've had the pleasure of meeting. His question to TrailManners: my favorite type of cheese curd. So this is the get to know you TrailManners section, not the ask TrailManners, the get to know you, which that's a rabbit hole you may not want to go down. Favorite type of cheese curd. Chris Pack, that is a good question. I think all of them. Is that a category? Is that really a category? No, I like the smoke ones. Have always been a favorite. I'm liking some green chili added in there, but people are getting super creative. I've seen some coffee ones. I'm not a huge fan of jalapeno because I think sometimes it takes away from the cheese. It gives you the spice, but sometimes it overpowers the beauty of a cheese curd. The beauty. And the listeners that don't know, I love cheese curds. That's like I've said that multiple times. So, Chris, that's a great question. I'm going to say all of them. I haven't tried all the cheese curds. There's so many out there and more happening. I love cheese. But I'm going to say like the smoky one, maybe a green chili, a little spice, but not enough to overpower the actual flavor of cheese. Southwest aren't bad. If you've had some of those ranch, I'm not a huge fan of. I'll just put that on my salad, my chicken wings, but I can be off that. And then lastly, the one that I probably yearn for. I yearn for this type of cheese curd. A deep fried cheese curd. Deep fried cheese curd. And I'm talking Roosters right here in Ogden because they give you so many dipping sauces that it goes straight to my hips. But I don't care. It is so good. So if you're ever in the Ogden area and you want a little bit of love, call me, text me, email me. I will meet you at Roosters. I will buy you a round of cheese curds if you let me have a couple. And I will introduce you to a little piece of heaven that I like to call a deep fried cheese curd. So thank you, Chris, for that question. Next up, another good friend of the show. I'm so lucky, you guys. I'm serious. When I go down the list of these names and see the people that are engaged and see all the people out there as I'm doing the countdown to the podcast and they're doing these gifts and all this stuff, I am the luckiest dude in the world, right? To so many amazing people. So next up is from the Great White North, up there in Canada, eh? We've got one from Andrew Giles. He says, what started me, Aric, in trail running? That's a fantastic question. I know we ask that question to a lot of our guests. What started me in trail running? Well, real quick, real fast, I was a soccer guy my whole life. I was coaching college soccer here at Weber State University, the men's soccer program. My assistant soccer coach, Mr. Scott Fast Eddie Jaime, who is not only my favorite runner of all time, but my just dearest, deepest, bestest friend. And I've got some stories to share over some beers with people, but I've got to get a little to the wind to tell them. But when I was coaching, he was getting into running, and trail running again wasn't big. You didn't have the lottery systems. It was still just, hey, if you have money and you want to show up, we'll let you run this dirt trail. That's kind of how old Scott Jaime is. I went to watch him run a race once and was absolutely mortified. I didn't think it was healthy. It was 100K here in Utah. And when he finished, he couldn't hear and he couldn't talk. And this is a true story. I was there at the finish line in a pavilion at the race, finish line, and he couldn't hear and he just sat there like a mute. And I was like, dude, this is permanent damage. He's a smart fella. But I mean, he bonked and ran hard and it was hot and all the things. So that's who got me into it. And I went and watched him run Wasatch 100 one year. I hit him up, saw him at some aid stations. And I remember looking at the community at Big Mountain aid station at the Wasatch 100. It's like mile 50 at the time, 40 something. And I just looked and I'm like, I want to be a part of this. And I did. Even right now as I'm talking, I was getting emotional. I wanted to be, how do I become a part of this community? The people were helping. It was mile, like I said, let's say 50 of 100 miles. So you're halfway through. People were coming in, different stages, some really worked, some in good shape. And when they would roll in, people would just pamper them with love and support. And I'm like, this is what the world should be like. I want in. So I sat around, I watched, I saw him come through, and me and another good friend went and watched him finish at the wee hours in the morning. And I remember from that day, I thought, I want to be a part of this. Now, I never wanted to run 100. I never wanted to run a 50. I didn't like running. Okay. I was a soccer guy. We ran because there was a ball, it was kind of like that thing. It's like chasing the cheese in the maze. But he said to me, hey, I want you to come pace me at this next year. I didn't know what pacing meant. I didn't know how to do anything. So I'm like, I'm in. Anything you do, I will support because you're my best friend, and you don't have to ask me twice, right? I'll do it in a thong if that's what it took, which thankfully it didn't. No one wants to see that. And so the next year I came back and I paced him, and that was it, folks. He helped me sign up for the Buffalo Run 25K. The first year Jim Skaggs put it on Antelope Island, that was my first ever trail race. 2 months later, a month later, I ran Greenland 50K. It's a 4-loop course. I swore off running that day for the rest of my life because that was the most miserable experience I've ever had. And then I turned around and ran Squaw Peak 50 and thought there is no way I can finish a 50-miler and think I have to go backwards that same course to do 100. And so then I ended up doing the Wasatch 100. So that's what got me started. Scott Jaime was my gateway drug to trail running. We all have those bad influencers, but he's been there every step of the way since that day. He paced me my first Wasatch. He paced me the last 60 miles by himself. And it was miserable for him because he had to go so slow from my slow ass. But he's been there for me. And again, it's just the friendships you forge is incredible. So long story, Andrew. That's what got me into trail running was my good friend and enabler, Scott Jaime. Next question comes from Tom. Tom says, do you ever meet up with any of your listeners and head out on a run? And the answer is absolutely. I've unfortunately had to miss a couple, people that have come through Ogden because of schedules, but sometimes it's late notice, sometimes I'm out of town. But absolutely, that's something I absolutely want to focus on for 2020. Like I said, I do a little bit of traveling, whether it's for races, for fun, and I know people do come to Utah. I want to meet people, and I would love to run with people. I'd love to go to another location, have someone show me the trails. I'm going to Colorado Springs for Thanksgiving this week and want to run some trails, and it just would be fun to have a guide. They know the best trails. They know the route, so I don't get lost. But yeah, absolutely. So if you're ever in the Ogden area from Salt Lake to Logan, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I would love to go on a run or have a beer or have a cheese curd or have a coffee or have a sparkling water, whatever you're into. I just would love to meet listeners as we go. Hopefully you guys aren't disappointed in person. Like I said, I got a face for radio, but yes, Tom, I do, and I would love to meet up with anybody. Next up is Beth from Texas. She said, why did you start the podcast in the first place? Well, I kind of covered that at the beginning. The lack of what I wanted to listen to, and I don't listen to podcasts anymore because I do one. And real quick on that one, I don't listen to other podcasts because I don't want in any way to be change my style, hear something and not purposely, because I would never steal anybody's idea. And I'm not saying we don't do anything different or the same or than anybody else, but I think if you've listened to the podcast and you know me or Joe long enough, you know that we've just tried to keep our own style. But I started it because, like I said, I wanted something positive and fun. Trail running is supposed to be positive. It's supposed to be encouraging. It's supposed to be fun. If you're doing it, if you're not having fun, you shouldn't be doing it. And so I heard a few that were, really long and I couldn't get into, and I heard a few that were just negative, and I'm like, I don't want that. And so, not that the TrailManners podcast fills everybody's needs, but it fills mine. And then over the years, it became something different. So that's really why. At the time, there was maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4 at the most. Only 1 or 2 that were consistent, and we've tried to do that over the years. So the next one, very detailed, very in-depth one from Tara from Utah. I know it's a joke, but I'm going to answer it anyway. Do I put my right shoe or my left shoe first? That's a really good question because I don't pay attention. But followed up by Missy in California, who I can't tell you how happy I am that she's a listener and follower. She said, well, that's a better question yet. Both socks before shoes or sock shoe. I've never thought of either one of these, but here's what I think I do, because I kind of go back and I'm thinking, a lot of my socks are right or left, right? So like features socks or my running socks will have an L or an R. I pull my socks apart. Whatever one's in my hand ready is the one that goes on first. So if it's the L, it's going on the left foot. If it's the R, it's going on the right foot. If there's not an L or R, I don't know what I do first. But I do know I put socks on first and then shoes to follow. I don't alternate. And I don't know why that is either. I don't think there's a method to my madness, but I'll tell you one thing, Tara and Missy, I'm probably going to start paying attention whether I want to or not now. So thank you for these such in-depth questions. Those are awesome. Next is Abby from Maine. Abby says, favorite songs on your playlist to run to? Abby, that's a question I love to answer because it changes a lot. But right now, I'm going to tell you, if I just want a cruiser run, and I mean just get out with music. Sometimes I don't run with music. If I want to get out with music and just kind of zone out and just have I call it a cruiser run, which means I'm just out hanging out. I'm not pushing hard, maybe not going long, maybe not going fast, just a cruise, man. The new Hollow Coves album is awesome. There's a couple slower songs on there, but the words on some of those are pretty rocking, like they hit your core. But some of the what do you call those other things when them makes music? Beats, rhythms, all that stuff. I'm not a music guy. I love. So I'm going to say Hollow Coves. The new Cold War Kids album is pretty awesome. The new Sugar Ray album. Who would have thunk it? That's awesome. There's a couple songs on there that mean a lot to me. And, so I listen to those. But I also have, a playlist. I call it Help. H-E-L-P. And my help playlist is when I'm on a run and I need help. Whether I need to pick up my pace, whether I need to refocus, whether I need to hurry, or how I like to close my run as fast as I can. So some of these runs I've been doing lately, I try and close hard. I'm talking, for me, it's fast. It's like 8-minute pace between 7:30 and 8:30. That's how I want to finish on this certain route I do every run for a bit. So it's called Help. And on the Help one, there's all kinds of stuff. I got some Carrie Underwood, and I think it's Ludacris, The Champion, right? I'm not a Carrie Underwood or Ludacris fan, but I listen to the words. It's got a good beat to it. That's just one of them. So I got a lot, realistically. But please check out Hollow Coves, Cold War Kids, and Sugar Ray. Those are some good ones right now. And if you have recommendations for me, please post them on the link on social media, this podcast episode. What episode is this? 140 podcast for the Tuesday show. I think we're at like 140 something for single track session. That's that. Steve in Idaho, this is one of my favorite questions. So I know Steve must listen because this is a question I ask in the lightning round. So we have a lightning round when we talk to our guests, and I have a bunch of them. This is one we ask, and this is an easy answer for me. If a movie was made about you, who would play you? Hands down, without a doubt, without question, Jack Black. I've been compared to him more than once in my life, and I think the dude is hilarious. And I still need to meet him because I think we'd probably get along really, really well. Luckily, I've become more svelte than Jack Black, but for sure Jack Black. His personality, I love that he's quirky and funny. I try to be the best I can. A lot of that's just to pay off my insecurities. But hey, who cares, right? So Jack Black. So thank you, Steve from Idaho. And our last question came in. It is, I'm going to read the whole thing because that's why I closed it out. It makes me feel pretty good. Glad you're coming back. We missed you. I'm moving out to Colorado from Chicago in the spring. First of all, go Cubs. I'm so stoked. That was me that said the Cubs thing. I'm so stoked to be living in the mountains. However, I am terrified of snakes, especially poisonous ones, because I run with my dog. How often do you see poisonous snakes on the trail in Utah each year? Also, is there a trick to spotting snakes? I am quite the noob when it comes to the wildlife out west. All fantastic questions. All I hate to address because I do not like snakes. So where I'm at, we've got basically a boa snake, a rattlesnake, garden snake or gardener snake, and a gopher snake. Those are kind of the four heavy hitters. Well, not obviously. The rattlesnake is the scary one. They're all scary because they're all snakes, and they look like sticks, and sticks look like snakes, so you're always in trouble. But it's definitely seasonal. So when it gets hot, and I'm terrified of snakes. I won't run in some locations. I won't run in the day because of rattlesnakes. How often do I see them? Too much. I know some people that see them every other run sometimes in the summer. It seems to get thicker. Maybe not that much, but a lot. And there's more of them. They're starting to encroach on the times they shouldn't be out, like 5 a.m. They should be sleeping. They should be in a hole somewhere. They should not be out messing with me. But I'm terrified. Is there a trick to spotting them? Well, luckily, if you have a dog, there is classes, and I know they do them in Utah. I'm sure they do them everywhere else. It's rattlesnake avoidance classes, and I took Gunner, my dog, to one, and it just helps your dog detect the danger or the sound or the smell of a snake before they get there, which helps alert you. And they also have some vaccines you can give them, and it's just basically to slow down the venom introduction process. So it's not like, oh, if my dog gets bit, he's fine. It's basically gives you more time to get to the vet to get it taken care of. Bigger dogs obviously have a better chance than little teeny dogs because of the ratios of size and blood and venom. But yeah, I think you can do that with dogs, and there's really not a trick to spotting them. I think you kind of get used to where they are, the locations where you see them, where someone else has seen them. But that goes for I can't speak for Colorado, so I'm not going to. I'm speaking for Utah. So when you get to Colorado, make sure you ask around. But like I know in Utah, there's places that you need to avoid in certain times of the year if you don't want to see them. I haven't known anybody to get bit venomously by a rattlesnake personally. I know a dog has a couple times, but I haven't. There's not a lot of recorded incidences, I guess, so to say. Or if there is, they sure don't make them public, which is a good thing for me because I don't want to hear about it. So great question. All great questions. Thanks for sending those in. Thanks for engaging with the podcast. And I'm just going to wrap it up here. Again, you'll have a lot more fun once we start having guests. This was kind of the welcome back party. But I just want to tell everybody Thanksgiving's coming up this Thursday, and I just want everybody, please be safe. Travel safe if you're going somewhere. If you're not, still be safe. I know some weather's hitting in certain areas, but just be careful out there. And I don't know if it's a challenge, but I know I personally have so much to be thankful for. And I challenge everybody to take the time for Thanksgiving and not just focus on the things you're thankful for, but if you have time, express it to those people that you are thankful for. Not just the people, but maybe their actions, because that goes a long way. I think if someone has touched you or made your life better or had an experience, I think it's okay to tell that person because you don't know what that person's going through, and it could mean a lot to them. So that's my challenge during Thanksgiving and even the holiday season. It's a tough time for a lot of people as much as it's supposed to be happy and joyful and everything else. Don't keep it to yourself. Let people know. I think that's important. I know it's uncomfortable sometimes. I'm not saying hug them and, whatever. Just a little text, even if it's that level, but just a word or two, just to tell them thank you. And if someone does thank you, know that it probably wasn't easy for that person to say that, so don't follow it up with, oh, you don't need to thank me. Just graciously say, you're very welcome, I'm glad, whatever, right? Because I do that. I thank people, and sometimes it's hard for me to do, and I don't want them to say, oh, you don't need to thank me for that. Well, I wouldn't have thanked you if I didn't feel that, and I might be thanking you because of what it meant to me on some other level. So that's just a little challenge to listeners, not to get too serious, but I wanted to throw that out there. And lastly, I want to leave the podcast because this is a big part of what's going on with me and the podcast right now. So just recently, I had someone very special to me tell me, and it's one of those things where you hear it, everybody's heard something, but sometimes you have to hear it at the right time. Sometimes you have to hear it from the right person, or sometimes you just have to be ready to hear it. Not just someone saying it to you, but you have to be ready to hear it. Your heart, your head, your whatever, you have to be ready. So just recently, I want everybody to remember this part. The special person says, there's no such thing as a bad day. You can always find at least one good thing. There may be a lot of bad things that make you not happy, run down, disappointed, but stop and look for the one good thing and put the focus there so you don't have a bad day. You have maybe bad moments, but not a bad day, because if something good happened, you can't classify that as bad, right? It seems basic, it seems super generic, but realistically, I probably have heard this at some point in my life, and I probably wasn't just ready to hear it. I probably heard it multiple times in my life. I probably just wasn't ready to hear it. To be honest, the last few years have been not easy for me, right? I may have heard that at some point. Oh, it's good. You didn't have a bad day. Focus on that. But I couldn't hear those things. The last 3 months, 4 months ago, that might have bounced off me, and I wouldn't have truly heard it, but I have. So life's crazy, right? Sometimes you hear things or things happen when you need them. And I think we all have those, so sometimes it's important to be ready to receive kind words from people. We probably hear more than we think. We listen, but we don't hear them. I was completely ready and honestly can't be more thankful. As lame as it sounds, it's changed my life and my living the past few months or the few weeks. And my approach to the day is completely different. My ending to the day is completely different. So to the person out there, they probably don't listen to this podcast. But if for whatever reason you do listen to the podcast, I just want to thank you. I could not thank you enough for the words that you said to me. And I hope that some way those come back to you. And I hope everybody out there feels that way, that just look for the good. And I don't want to get off track and, what kind of podcast is this? I don't. But I think it's important because people need to hear things, and we need to be open and ready for things. Because guess what? When you're least expecting it, something's going to smack you in the face, and it's going to change a lot. So thank you so much for the patience you've had for the TrailManners Podcast as we've taken a small hiatus. I look forward to bringing you fantastic shows, fantastic guests, and I just want to bring energy and excitement to your hour with me, or whatever the time frame is. So if you have ideas, if you have questions, if whatever, please don't hesitate. Hit me up, manners@trailmanners.com. Be ready for Tuesday's podcast. We are going to have the one and only Mr. Turtle Miller back on the show, 2-time world champion, and you're going to have to listen to hear more about that, followed by a single-track session. The next week, we're going to have an amazing guest on, followed by a single-track session. The next week, we're going to have our Christmas gift episode that I know everybody looks forward to, and we're going to have some special guests on the show with me to talk about those Christmas gifts, and I know we've all liked those, so pay attention to those. And I think even one more podcast after that on Tuesday before we take our Christmas break. Folks, thank you from the bottom of my full heart for listening to the TrailManners Podcast. Spread the word. Support the show any way you can, review it, whatever you want to do, but thank you for the patience. Thanks for sticking around, and I hope you're still there listening to the podcast, because I'm here, I'm back, I'm strong, and I'm ready to roll. So thanks again. This is your host for the TrailManners Podcast, Aric Manning, and I am out. Thank you again for listening to the TrailManners Podcast. I can't tell you how much it means for me to be back and to have you all listen to the show. I want to encourage everybody to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at TrailManners, or swing by our website at TrailManners.com. There you can hit us up on the contact page, let us know what you want to see, who you want to hear, or if you would like to be on the show. And besides, I always love hearing from you. And if you could take just a moment and leave us a rating or review on iTunes or Facebook, I'd greatly appreciate that. And lastly, TrailManners would love your support via our Patreon account at patreon.com/TrailManners to keep us alive and kicking. Until next time, this is Aric Manning reminding you, you don't get what you wish for, you get what you work for. Now go get it.